There are many principalities across the world, but none so unique as the independent Principality of Sealand. What sets Sealand apart from a traditional principality is chiefly its history. Established in international waters according to the international law of the sea in the mid-1960s, it owes its existence today to the sheer hard work and dedication of its founder, Major Roy Bates. Occupying the original wartime fort named Ruff's Tower, a man-made marine structure in the North Sea 7 miles off the east coast of the UK, for the last 35 years Sealand has existed successfully and what is more, economically and politically independent of all other countries. It holds some ambitious yet realistic plans for the future. Security is tight and worldwide interest is gaining rapidly in this otherwise mysterious and isolated place. Shortly after the outbreak of World War II in the UK, special structures known as sea forts were built and placed in the Thames estuary to help protect London and its surrounding areas from air and sea enemy invasion. The objective was for radar equipment, which was new technology at the time, to be installed on the forts alongside anti-aircraft guns and other defence equipment, to act as an early warning system for and deal with enemy attacks and mine laying. There were 2 designs of sea fort built, one for the British Army, the other for the British Navy. The Army had 3 forts strategically sited close to the UK coastline. The Navy had 4, and these tended to be sited further out to sea. The Army forts comprised of 7 towers on legs linked by steel catwalks, housing searchlights, fuel, living quarters and guns, etc. The Navy ones were a much simpler one-piece construction mounted on 2 hollow reinforced concrete legs, each around 9.5 metres in diameter and supported by a pontoon base. Each leg contained 7 decks for stores of ammunition, food, fuel and other supplies, as well as living accommodation. On top of the 2 legs sat a steel platform for the guns, radar equipment, control tower and other military hardware. The first Navy fort was placed off the port of Harwich in January 1942 and, like all the others, was built at Gravesend in the UK and towed out by boat to be sunk and anchored into position at the nautical points where they were needed. The Army forts were situated at sea points known as Shivering Sands, Red Sands and the Great Nore. The Navy forts were situated at the Sunk Sands, the Ruffs, where Sealand is sited today, Tongue Sands and the Knock John. Collectively, apart from all the successful early warning activities they achieved, the military sited on the forts shot down enemy aircraft, flying bombs and neutralised much hostile shipping and were an effective countermeasure against submarines. After the war, the forts were abandoned, but in the mid-1960s a few were used to house offshore pirate radio stations, as the sites were, at that time, outside British territorial waters. The Navy fort at the Sunk Head, for example, was used for a station called Radio Tower. It was the Knock John fort that was taken over by businessman Roy Bates, and he kitted it out for what was to become a successful UK-financed local radio station called Radio Essex, which broadcast on 222 metres in the medium wave band. Broadcasts started in October 1965. Roy also planned to open another station, Radio Kent, using another fort sited off Margate. Although preparations were started to make the structure ready for radio use, by this time UK laws were about to change that would render such plans pointless. On the 28th of September 1966, Roy Bates was served with a court summons alleging his breach of the new Wireless Telegraphy Act, which was passed to outlaw such unauthorised broadcasting. Bates fought the case on what was perceived to be good grounds and renamed Radio Essex BBMS, Britain's Better Music Station, but his radio operations were finally outlawed after his court appeal failed and the station ceased broadcasting on the 18th of January 1967. Likewise, other such stations functioning from forts within territorial waters were also outlawed, shut down and abandoned. Most of those forts still remain today, although in a very derelict condition. The one at the Sunk Head was destroyed by the British Navy as its position became a nuisance to shipping. But by then the respected maverick Roy Bates did not sit on his hands. Using his preeminent business skills, worldwide contacts and his knowledge of the UK and international territorial waters and wireless telegraphy laws, he identified and grasped a legal opportunity to set up his own principality. After the closure of Radio Essex and BBMS, Roy and his wife Joan, a former beauty queen of the 60s, set up home on the more northerly Ruff's Tower, renamed it Sealand, and claimed it as their own independent state.
It was the beginning of pirate radio that we went to a pub one night. We used to go for a drink before dinner, and we went to the pub and we were discussing with friends, and he said, "There you are, darling, now you've got your own island, what do you think of that?" And I said, "Well, I'd like my own flag and a few palm trees." And they all discussed it. They all went home for coffee, but Roy went home and started digging out what law books he could find at home to see if there was a reason why we couldn't do it. And he couldn't find a reason, and he went to his lawyer and he said, "No," he said, "I can't find any reason, but Roy, I'm sure you can't do it. You'll end up in the Tower, locked up in the Tower of London."
Well, the main thing was to prove our independence from Britain. And it shouldn't have been that difficult, really, because with Ireland and the empire they had, they were well used to claims of independence being put against them on different areas. And so, though they talked pretty wildly at times, they didn't do anything. And they virtually accepted what we were doing.
There were times when I think, "Oh, I could do without this," but if he came to me and said, "Shall we give it up?" I used to say no, because I knew he didn't want to. And I volunteered to help him with Sealand because I wanted him to succeed. Really. I have to say, people were always very nice to me. I think, as one person said, he said he could understand Roy doing it, but he couldn't understand me doing it. I didn't bother to explain my reasons, but people in general were always very, and still are, very nice to me. Yes. No.
I seem to have inherited a few enemies around the place, but part of it was also some people, there seemed to be a great feeling, if we could do this there should be other places in the world that people wanted to do it, but they couldn't find them.
No, they say it will never be done again. It's been done once and it can never ever be done again anywhere in the world, because they've closed up all the gaps.
I don't think that anybody can make things difficult for us now, because you know, if they didn't want us to land in England, we could land in France or Germany or Scandinavia. Everybody is extraordinarily friendly to what we've done now, and help, including the English. You know, one of the things is a freedom area to have a hotel, a hostel, or even people living there in a freedom area where they're free from taxes and free from financial controls, unnecessary financial controls. And what more can you say? I mean, businesses there wouldn't be liable for tax except any agreement they made with us. That's all. It's anything that is internationally free trading and which comes on broad ground. And we do get propositions to raise land around us there to hold free country which is free trading. But so far we've always turned these propositions down because we felt at that period that we were a little young, the country was a little young and not established well enough to do that successfully.
The state was soon officially set up, declared a principality to the international community of states, and began to function as the country which indeed it was. Living conditions aboard improved, tendering arrangements for food, fuel and other essential supplies were also made secure, and there were plans to turn the venture into a European free trade zone. Sealand even produced its own postage stamps, passports and coinage. There was even a marriage ceremony on the Principality. Although the fortress has been constantly manned since 1967, several takeover bids have been launched against Sealand since its inception, one of them particularly violent and involved the kidnap of Roy's son Michael. Prince Regent Michael Bates, who is now the head of state of the Principality, explains what happened.
We had some trouble with a few Germans in 1978. My parents were in Austria for a meeting with some business associates, but the same people decided they would invade while they were there. But it was a German tax consultant who I'd met, who I knew, and wanted to land, and I wouldn't let him land. I was there on my own on Sealand. So he came down on a winch wire, and they had a camera crew filming him from the helicopter. And then another guy came down, and he handed me a telex saying that my father had asked that they should be allowed to stay there, and one thing and the other. I was in the living room, which at the time I needed a tiny small porthole. Now it's got big double glazed windows. And the door got slammed, and one of the camera crew stuck a tripod to the door handle, and I was locked in a steel room for about 3 or 4 days. Feet tied together, knees tied together, elbows, hands. My dad got back home for the next few hours, next day, from Austria, because he got an inkling of what was going on. So we found a friend of ours who had a helicopter company at the Southampton airport, took the doors of the helicopter and tied ropes on them, on the back of the seats in the airplane. As we flew towards the fort, just breaking daylight, the first thing that there was, I could see a guy on deck sleeping in a chair. And he told me afterwards the first thing he saw was a helicopter appear from underneath the platform and put it to hover above the top. And we were standing outside at the time, on back on the skids that came in, and slid down ropes on the top.
Even though internationally Sealand is known and recognised as an independent country and a legitimate principality, the British government still refused to recognise Sealand's sovereignty or even its existence, in spite of the latest UK Ordnance Survey tourist map labelling it otherwise. Leaving Harwich by speedboat, we went to discover exactly what it's like to live and work in Sealand in 2003.
Well, you're going up in Harwich, aren't you?
Mate. One of the engineers in Sealand at the time of our visit was Michael Barrington. He showed us around the fortress. Well, here we are on the Principality of Sealand in the kitchen, or if you're more nautically inclined, the galley. And as you can see, it's quite Spartan. The conditions on here are quite good. There's cookers, there's fridges, there's everything that you would need to live, eat and survive here. Here's Michael, who's at the moment the resident engineer on the Principality. He's been involved as an engineer out here for around about 15 years now. Michael, is there any chance we could just have a further look around the fortress?
Certainly, if you'd like to follow me.
Thank you very much.
Have a look.
And so, the living room. Again, everything that you would expect at home. Comfy chairs, settee, pictures on the wall. There's even a telescope over there. And quite simply, a shower room with a toilet and a sink. Just to keep yourself clean, I suppose. It's just simple, basic living. And finally on this level, the upper deck level on the Fortress, is the State Office rooms, where you'll find telecommunications equipment and other essentials that are absolutely necessary in the running of a principality such as this. Well, here we are on the first level in the north leg. Nothing much to say about this area really, apart from the fact it's really just a landing. So shall we have a look down and see what's a layer below? Now, this looks a bit of an interesting room. Michael, tell us something about this.
Well, this used to be one of the accommodation rooms back in the 40s during the war, with 12 bunks in it, and I believe 3 hammocks, which came from these hooks up here and across, with bunks all the way around. And now, as you can see, it's our own personal accommodation.
So the Navy personnel would swing their hammocks from these hooks, and this would be where they'd sleep.
That's where they sleep.
Or one of the rooms, anyway.
Well, 3 of them, and then 6 around, and another 6 on top of that.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay. Let's carry on down.
Okay, let's go down below.
Okay. And this room is just another bedroom, really.
Just
Michael,
another
is it?
bedroom, slightly smaller than the other one. Large room, same history, but divided into 3.
Right.
If you like,
Okay.
we go next door. I'll show you the den of iniquity next door.
Right. Let's go. Wow, well, we've got a red carpet in here. This looks a little bit different, a little bit plush. Can you tell us anything about this small room?
This is one of our crew's rooms, and it's really down to people to do with them what they want. And this guy here, he's actually made it into something civilised.
Yes, it's very posh.
The other rooms have been gradually getting there. This is one of the ones that's more there, nice work desk, etc.
Brilliant.
And very comfortable.
Have we got another room on this layer?
Yes, we've got another one if you'd like to come through.
Can we have a
Show
look?
you through.
Great. Well, Michael, another fairly small room, again quite plush, single bed, and we've got a telephone in here. Does that work?
Yes, it does. You can ring anywhere in the world or anywhere on the island.
Really?
Yes.
That's quite amazing. Okay, let's carry on round.
We'll go downstairs into the conference room.
Right. Right, Michael, we're down yet another layer here now. What's this all about here?
This is the conference room where we hold conferences, meetings, etc.
Right. And
We're well down below sea level now.
right, so if we listen carefully enough, we can hear the water lashing against the walls, yeah?
Just like a submarine.
Right.
Well down below.
And so, what else is there down here?
There's a jail. Would you like to go to jail?
You've got a jail?
We have. Would you like to follow me?
Let's have a look.
Okay, come this way. We are now well down below sea level in what used to be the armoury on the fort, which is here where all the ammunition was stored. And here is what is now our jail.
And it's really a jail?
Yes, it is.
You can tell I'm a bit nervous.
Yes, so if you go in, we'll lock you up to a 6-month sentence.
And was anyone ever locked up in here?
There was one gentleman who was part of an invasion force some years ago, and he was locked up for some time.
Right. Yes, it doesn't look a very
No, it's not
comfy
very-
place.
No, we should give you a bucket and a glass of water. And
Well, thank you very much.
Get on with it.
I think we better get on.
yeah, you might as well.
So first layer of the second leg now. And Michael, this looks a little bit more high-tech. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
A little bit. This used to be originally part of a generator room during World War II, and now it houses the telephone exchange for the entire island. It routes all our calls to the mainland and anywhere else in the world.
Okay.
Right, would you like to see the next level?
Yes, please.
Okay, follow me.
Now this is where it really starts to look interesting. What can you say about this area?
This really is the business side of the operation, which is quite secret, as you can probably imagine.
And it obviously generates a lot of heat, so you've got a cooling mechanism here as well.
Yes, we've got air conditioning, and we suck the heat out, put cold air in and regulate it, filter it, you name it.
And there's clearly a lot of equipment here too.
Oh yes, and even more down below.
And this belongs to a company that happens to be resident here on the Principality.
One of the companies that are resident here, it's just one of them.
What actually goes on in here?
This is the Network Operations Centre. This is where we program and maintain some of the IT equipment that's on Sealand and do various repair work, etc., etc. It's where basically the servers are built up.
And would you find people working down here sort of 24 hours?
Not 24 hours, but sometimes quite long hours, depending on what's going on. Yes, it has been known.
So it could be occupied any time, day or night, with specialist people working on the IT equipment?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And when you're out here, it's absolutely amazing. We're in the North Sea, but the place doesn't rock, it doesn't sway, it doesn't move. The sensation is absolutely unique. Here we are up on the helipad, and we can see for miles, quite honestly. But what a sensation this is. What a sensation. A few years ago, Michael Bates commissioned Geoffrey Withers to assist with some of Sealand's developing business plans, including that involving a joint venture with Cyprus-based IT company Havenco. Havenco are using the Principality to house a giant internet fat pipe hub facility for companies worldwide who, for various political and other reasons, would be prohibited from providing such a service by their respective governments. Geoffrey Withers explains his contribution and involvement with Sealand and some of the current and future governance aspects and aspirations for the future of the Principality.
The Principality is envied by many and known by a great many as perhaps the only example of a viable independent country being established in the 20th century. There were other countries, of course, established in the 19th century, in the 18th, and so on. But in the 20th century, the Principality really gets the nod as the only candidate. In going through the history of the founding of the country, I'm constantly impressed by the difficulties that were initially found. Communications, both physical and post and electrical communications, telecoms, all were very, very frustrated and very difficult to implement. But it worked, and it worked mainly because of the hard work put in by Prince Roy, Princess Joan, and Prince Regent Michael. The Principality first came to my notice in the mid-80s of the last century. And it was at that time that the Principality was considering the possibility of putting in a TV broadcasting facility for southeast England. The project came to nothing, really, because it was technically inappropriate to attempt to do what was wanted. But in the process of dealing with that and doing the investigations, I became involved with Sealand and worked together with Prince Roy on that project. It does in fact fit comfortably in the international community of states. It has its own territory, it has its own population, it has its own sustaining utilities, power, fresh water, what do you do with refuse, these issues that are to do with how to run a country, which many people take for granted. The de facto recognition simply says, are we here? And oh yes, the UK, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Norway, all our neighbouring countries, but many other countries too, know very well we're here. We've been here for nearly 40 years, and our intention is, of course, to stay for another 40 at least, if not more. So I suppose there is another sector which needs to be considered, and that's the Sealand Guard, and they're responsible for making sure the place is safe physically and no unknown visitors come knocking at doors. That has happened in the past, so the Principality's concerned with that.
But while the Bates family and their associates must surely be commended for their sheer determination and hard work in initiating and maintaining the Sealand project, they are really quite normal people. As for a more detailed insight into the future of this principality, well, who knows? But Sealand's prospects look bright as the resident businesses gain momentum and the fortress continues to gain much interest in international media and advertising.